All right. What did we talk about last week? Anybody remember?
Stiff-hearted.
Who was stiff-hearted? Children. He's going to be bound. He's not going to be able to what? The children of Israel. Mm-hmm. What was interesting about his commissioning as a prophet?
He wasn't old enough.
Mm-hmm.
He just turned old enough.
He's not going to be able to talk.
Okay, so he wasn't in Jerusalem at the temple. He is of age to be a priest, but he's not in Jerusalem. But what about his calling as a prophet? What is he called to do specifically in chapter 3? He's to be a watchman, and there's one extra little addition to this watchman status. What is he not able to do? Okay, talk and rebuke. Verse 26 of chapter 3, unable to reprove them. There's this idea of he is unable to intercede on behalf of the people, intercede on behalf of God to the people. He's not able to rebuke them or reprove them, which is going to be interesting. There is a lot of very dark stuff that he is going to continue to face, but our job is to continue to seek what the message behind this is. And so we are going to cover 2 whole chapters tonight, believe it or not. And so the first one will read more, the second one will summarize some and read some. But we are going to start his ministry as a prophet, watchman, non-intercessor, rebuker. And we're going to start in chapter 4. And so I need somebody to read chapter 4, verses 1 through 3.
1, 2, 3. And you, son of man, take a brick and lay it before you, and engrave on it a city, even Jerusalem, and put siege works against it, and build a siege wall against it, and cast up a mound against it. Set camps also against it, and plant battering rams against it all around. And you take an iron girdle, and place it as an iron wall between you and the city, and set your face towards it. And let it be in a stage of siege, and press the siege against it. This is a sign for the house of Israel.
Okay, so we have a prophet. He's been commissioned to speak only what the word of the Lord says. He is not to speak. He is in his house, and the first thing he's commissioned or called to do, particularly, is what we would consider a sign act. Why would this prophet utilize a sign act to speak the message to the house of Israel? Okay, yeah, you can't speak. There's many questions that we have here, right? This is a message to the house of Israel, and where is this taking place?
Babylon.
Yes, Babylon specifically. Where in Babylon? Yeah, he's in his house.
Still there.
So he's in his house. He's performing a theatrical work to express something that God is doing. And this type of media in which God is utilizing is not uncommon for the prophets. Can anybody think of another prophet that had to experience a certain sign act in order to relay his message?
No, but this reminds me of John the Baptist's dad. I forgot his name. When he couldn't speak the whole pregnancy, it's like he couldn't foretell that his son was going to be the foreteller of Jesus.
Okay, yep.
So that reminds me of that.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah. Noah building the ark, yeah. Yes. Huh? Isaiah, that's what we're looking for. What in Isaiah
Just stumble over him when he gives a
did
full answer.
Isaiah have to go through?
One line word closed.
Yeah. How long? Any idea? 3 years. So Isaiah had to walk around naked for 3 years as a sign act. That's Isaiah 40, 20. Isaiah 20. I think Isaiah 20. Let me check that. So this is not an uncommon practice. This is something that some prophets at some point are called to do. he is going to experience 4 of them. And the first one, what is it? What exactly is this first one? Anybody understand what it was?
Got a brick wall.
Okay. Build a brick wall. Put it in modern terms. Ezekiel, you are going to perform a sign act, and I want you to play with Legos. Right? Get a brick, put what name on it? Jerusalem. And in this miniature brick city, what attributes are supposed to be added to this little diorama? Battering rams, a siege ramp, camps, mound, and the iron plate, iron griddle, right? Why do you think this is an act? This is a sign act. What do we know about Ezekiel and what he is partly promising or prophesying in Babylon? Yeah. So that Jerusalem will be besieged, right? So here's this little model version of what is to come, because Ezekiel is living in between the 2 exiles. Babylon has already come in and taken Ezekiel. But there remains people who are still in Jerusalem. And this is very much the despairing message that's going to be spoken to Ezekiel by God. And the first sign act of what God is going to do is build this brick city that is going to then be besieged. Now there's an interesting note here. The thing that stood out to me immediately was the iron plate. What's with the iron plate? What do you think that means?
Chad?
Iron is a whole lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, so here we have, and we'll discover what he's doing here. But look, this is an awesome city, right? Beautiful, right? And we've got a siege ramp. It's going up over the ramp, over the walls, I mean. He is looking down the siege ramp, and he's actually called to prophesy to it. And in between, one interpretation here is in between him and the city that is going to be besieged or sieged is an iron plate. And the idea is the man of God is not prophesying to the city, is not warning the city, is not, there's this impenetrable force between the man of God and the city that is going to be destroyed. Does that make sense? Protection, maybe, yeah. I think this further builds onto this. Ezekiel is not supposed to really intervene in any of this. After all, he's performing this Lego Brick City act, presumably silently and mute in his home. Now, later on in the book, we will see scenarios where it'll say, like, the elders of Israel come to his home. And there'll be other scenarios where he might be performing something on the outside of his home. But for the most part, he's mute and shut up in his home when he's given this first sign act.
I thought that the iron grill or plate probably represented a barrier between the current Israelites and the Lord. Because culturally, this is a time when they're still being told by the false prophets, hey, we're all going back home, right? Even though they're now been enslaved by the Babylonians, and we know they're not going back home. And just a few years ago, Jeremiah had said, if you do all these things which you did none of, then you can have restitution with glory. And so in Ezekiel, God says too late. I told you, and I told you, and I told you, but you didn't listen, right? Yeah. I told you I was still on your own side of the back seat. I'm going to stop this car. Now the car is stopped.
Yeah.
So that's how I read the iron.
Well, that's what I'm saying as well. I'm saying that.
Well, I didn't think it was a barrier between Ezekiel and the city. I thought it was God saying, I'm no longer open to you making amends with me.
I agree. What I'm saying is from Ezekiel's standpoint, because he's the one experiencing it at the moment. So the iron plate here is a message to the prophet who's silent, sitting in his home, who's just been told he's a watchman, not an intercessor, that there's an impenetrable force that is stopping the thing or stopping the stopping of something that's going to happen. Like, this is going to happen, ultimately. And this iron plate becomes this visual representation, because he's going to be laying on his side, staring down this ramp, and prophesying at this thing, but the idea is that this plate is representative of, it's not going to help. Like, this is going to happen. It's reached that point of no return, ultimately. Which I think the following sign acts will also continue to sort of build onto. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you agree?
No,
Okay.
that is okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The word of the Lord is very complex.
Of course it is,
On
yeah.
multiple levels,
Yep.
all around. So I'm thinking about, okay, is this about Ezekiel, or is this about God, or is this about the Israelites? And I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah.
I'm hearing y'all say the same thing.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
I'm here
So
to disagree.
just like the Lego brick city is representative of the actual city of Jerusalem, and what's his face? Ezekiel is standing for God. And so the picture is being laid out as like a lesser thing, but then a deeper thing that it's representing is what you're talking
So
about.
you're saying,
So
let me
it's
make sure I'm clear.
both
You're
churches.
saying that Ezekiel is now in the role of the placeholder in the diorama where God is.
Sort of.
Is that what you said?
I don't think it's quite that. I think it's that, like you were saying, it's multi-layered. If you're looking from Ezekiel's standpoint, this meaning and message is going to remain the same as if you're an Israelite reading this after the fact and you're seeing that there's an iron plate here, that God has created a barrier that it's not going to change.
Yeah, no question about that. I guess I'm wondering about the perspective.
Mhm.
Which perspective is the relevant one?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they all are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Probably.
To Ezekiel before it was saying, hey, you're not going to be able to stop this, and then to the Israelites seeing it later, to be seen and back out where it's God, that you're not just them.
Well, if you're taking that this is a chronological unfolding of God's plan to the Watchman, right? He's discovering what's about to happen from a place in which he's basically kind of in his own mind useless. I'm filling in his own emotions, obviously, but he's not being put in a position in which he's going to affect. It's not like Jeremiah. Jeremiah was placed in a position where there could have been an effective change. And ultimately, because all these other prophets and stuff were being led astray by their own, well, Ezekiel said it, they were led by their own ruach, their own spirit. These guys are prophesying God's not going to do this. He's going to bring shalom. He's going to bring peace. And by the way, Jeremiah's false because he claimed that Babylon was going to come in, and they did. And guess what? We're still here. Now, of course, he would be proven right as the second incursion happens, that takes place, which I'd love to be Jeremiah at that moment, but also not, because it's, I mean, how much of a I told you so, but yet complete and utter despair that would be. Ezekiel is in the in-between stages now where he is in this other land. He is discovering the future plan that is going to happen, and unlike Jeremiah, there is not a if. It is just, yep. And so if we're going down the synapse, because we're discovering his calling, his commissioning, and his purpose, if we're going down the synapse as both revealing to Ezekiel the prophet, but also it would be in time revealing to the reader, to those who lived on the other side of the second incursion or exile of Babylon. They would go, wow, Ezekiel's been calling this whole time. Like, ultimately, I think it just depends on from which time frame and what area you're reading this from, I think is what you're going to see. But either way, there's an impenetrable thing. It's going to happen, ultimately, depending on no matter what view you're kind of looking at there. Let's move on to the next one, though. Let's read verses 4 through 8.
Then lie on your left side and place the punishment of the house of Israel upon it. For the number of the days that you lie on it, you shall bear their punishment. For I assign to you a number of days, 390 days, equal to the number of the years of their punishment. So long shall you bear the punishment of the house of Israel. And when you have completed these, you shall lie down a second time, but on your right side, and bear the punishment of the house of Judah. 40 days I assign you, a day for each year. And you shall set your face toward the siege of Jerusalem, with your arm bared and you shall prophesy against the city. And behold, I will place cords upon you, so that you cannot turn from one side to the other, till you have completed the days of your siege.
Was somebody feeding him?
He does have a wife,
Okay.
for now. Oh, that was a bad joke, sorry.
Next verse.
Say it again?
Is that the next
Oh,
verse?
well, yeah, we will get into that, yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Okay, so sign act number 1, there's Brick City. Sign act number 2, he's going to lay it on his sides. One side for a certain amount of time, the other side for another certain amount of time. What do you think about this? What's your thoughts here?
Suffering. That's a lot of suffering.
That is a lot of suffering. There's a lot of suffering. I actually wonder, Chad, you can speak more to this in the medical field. As a nurse, we deal a lot with what were they called? Pressure ulcers. Thank you. I just wonder if he had to, go through that. Like, I wonder, barring some, miraculous way of God of protecting him in that, which it doesn't necessarily say it does or doesn't. So,
This is symbolic, it stands up at some point, or carried somewhere. Or God is being, or he has ulcers.
yeah,
There's no,
Yeah.
and not stomach ulcers, ulcerations on parts of the body line.
yeah. 390 days. It's a
I
long
don't think we
time.
can do it 30 minutes.
It's a long time. It's a very long time. 390. I mean, Is-
Are you going to tell us about the 390 days? Because I spent time trying to understand that and could not.
so I'm going to give you 2 views, but neither of which I feel great about. So the 390, the major view is the chronological standing time of the temple from start to finish, but that doesn't get you a good 390. It's like a 370 and some change or something like that. And so it's not super great. The 40 may be part of the either like a wilderness exile motif of the 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. However, it could also be the addition of 390 plus 40, which would equal the 430, which would be the amount of time that Israel was protected in Egypt, both under Pharaoh's safely and then in slavery. And so I don't know. Quite a few theories, but none of, like you were saying, there wasn't necessarily super ironclad. This is exactly what it means.
One thing that I thought of with this was the roughly 400 years between Malachi and Jesus.
Which would play on that same Israelite and Egypt motif of the long period of time of supposed God's forgetting of his people, but in reality he was working his will the entire time. Yeah. He was protecting them in the belly of the beast, like he's going to do in Babylon. Ultimately, a remnant at least. Yeah. What does it say about his suffering? Because here's Ezekiel. He is very much acting the suffering servant part, right? His just ministry itself is a ministry of suffering, like utter suffering. What does it say is his action in doing this? Like, what's the outcome of this for him laying on his side? Yeah, he should bear their sin or bear their punishment. Can you think of anything? Does anything come to mind when you hear something of bearing the sin or bearing the punishment?
Jesus.
Old Testament.
Sounds about too bad.
Absolutely Jesus. Absolutely
Short
Jesus.
answer.
Previous to this, though.
Priests. Priests.
Okay.
If you compare the sin, or they would perform the atonement process for the sin of the
Yes.
people.
And what was the atonement process? What was their process there? Anybody know? They would, once a year, they'd go through the atonement process, as in Leviticus 16. And what would they do? They would gather together something. Anybody know what they were? There were 2 of them.
Scapegoat.
There you go. There you go. There's 2 goats, right?
Scapegoat and the sacrificial.
Right. There would be one that would be considered righteous and blameless, Sadiq. This would be shown through some sort of a ritual. This thing that's righteous and blameless would then go into a going up offering, which would transcend the physical into the God realm. It would be burnt up. The other one would have the hands laid on it, and all the sins of the nation of Israel would be placed on the goat. And then what would that goat, what was the destination of that goat?
Wilderness.
Was sent off into the wilderness. And so every Jew would have known this, every Israelite would have understood this, but it is very interesting that we're getting this picture, this little bit of a mosaic of a suffering servant who in his suffering will be playing the part of the scapegoat. This exact same phrase, bearing the punishment, bearing the sins of the people. Any thoughts on that? All the while he's doing this, he's still staring at his great city, still prophesying at it.
From his left side.
390 days is a long time. I mean,
30
lay down
minutes.
your side, what is the rest of the world doing? What are the people he's prophesying to doing? What's next?
Now let's go down this thought experiment for just a second. 390 days is supposed to be representative of 390 years. Right, 390 years, if we're going down the process of, like per se, the amount of time the temple is standing, if we're just thinking like that. The idea is that the people have been sinning and living in their own suffering for that amount of time. And so what he is doing on a micro scale, on a small picture, he is enacting the reality of the people that are about to experience the suffering that they knew was coming ultimately, which we'll get into. They could have seen it coming. So the idea is like, if my people would have, or if my people did, but they didn't. So the implications is they've been suffering in ways that maybe they don't even know, and they're about to suffer in way worse ways than they'll ever realize. And here he is having to do this alone, shut up in a house, bearing the sins, the iniquities of people that he isn't even living with anymore. Any other thoughts? I know we're kind of flying through. We're hitting just handlebars here. Okay, let's read 4:9 through 17. Let's get the next one.
And you take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and emmer, and put them into a single vessel, and make your bread from them. During the number of days that you lie on your side, 390 days, you shall eat it. And your food that you shall eat be by weight 20 shekels a day. From day to day you shall eat it. And water you shall drink by measure, the 6th part of a hin. From day to day you shall drink, and you shall eat it as a barley cake, baking it in their sight on hewn dung. And the Lord said, thus shall the people of Israel eat their bread unclean among the nations, where I will drive them. Then I said, Ah, Lord God, behold, I have never defiled myself. From my youth up until now, I have never eaten what died of itself or was torn by beasts, nor has tainted meat come into my mouth. Then he said to me, See, I assign to you cow's dung instead of human dung, on which you may prepare your bread. Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, behold, I will break the supply of bread in Jerusalem. They shall eat bread by weight and with anxiety, and they shall drink water by measure and in dismay. I will do this that they may lack bread and water, and look at one another in dismay, and rot away because of their punishment.
All right, what you think?
First thought was, oh, the same thing for 390 days, same water, and then I saw it's coupon.
Yeah.
There's not enough food roll. Right, this is not enough food roll in day water.
What is it? What is it?
I agree with the bank, right? It tells us to do wrong, right? We're not supposed to buy on bread, right? The word of God. To me, it's contrast very sharply with, like, here's some bread. And it's really crappy bread.
Literally.
And there's not enough of it anyway, because that's not what they should have been relying on the whole time. They're not trying to be better than that, but they've been relying on themselves this whole time. Now God went, okay, here you go.
How you like that? People like this.
So what is a hint?
It's not just 5.7 liters, obviously.
6 part of a hen is about 5.6 liters.
It's a female chicken.
There you go.
There you go.
It's not enough. So I would need about half a hen to survive under normal circumstances. I'm not even thinking in hens, so I'm having to adjust that. And Holly would probably need like a third of a hen. So like smaller people are really less strong. These are dying rations. These are people who cannot survive on this amount, this dose of food and water.
I have a footnote that says the small amount of food he was allowed to eat represented the normal ration provided to those living in a city under siege by enemy armies.
Does that have a hyperlink to or cross-reference? Okay, that was just interesting. I wonder where they got that, or if they derived it from
Under
us.
siege, no one is fussy about the ingredients they use to make bread.
So, okay, yes, he said under siege, nobody is fussy about the ingredients used to make bread. So obviously there's multiple layers of meaning to all this, right? We have all of these sign acts are all pointing towards a singular event that is going to happen. That being the 1.5-year siege of Jerusalem itself, and the fall of Jerusalem itself. For those who are not familiar with the siege practices, anybody want to fill us in on what a siege was, what that means?
Starved out. Locked you, barricaded you in.
Right.
And starved you out.
So the very thing that you built up to protect your vulnerability against those who want to kill you becomes the very thing or the vessel to which it will lead to death. You build up walls to protect yourself. You live in a desert, so you canal in water however you can, right? And ultimately, there's going to be a requirement of a continual feed of water and food from outside of those walls in order to sustain life. So the good thing is that an enemy could not just come in and just tear down your walls unless you're, the Israelites walking around Jericho. Could not just tear down your walls quickly. There was a certain amount of protection it allowed you, but that very protection becomes a death sentence if in the addition of time. And so when you have a military who come out and set up camp around your walls and can cut off your water or whatever that may be, then they just have to wait. They don't have to fire a single arrow. They just have to sit there and wait. Because eventually the people will get to the point where they are so, dead, ultimately, that they will give up. And that was a common practice of the time. And here, the Watchman, Ezekiel, is now suffering while laying on his side. He's still prophesying at the city. And now his ration of food to eat is starvation levels worth. And not only that, it's not even good bread. Notice what one of the main ingredients was? Beans.
Spelt.
What kind of grains?
Millet and spelt.
Millet, spelt, wheat, and barley. And the barley should tip you off as something. Because what do we know about barley?
Beer?
Isn't that beer?
He probably wanted
I
a
don't know. It might be beer. It might be.
He might have wanted a beer.
I don't know.
Spiced up the deal.
If you had the choice between making bread out of wheat and barley, what would you choose today? Why?
Tastes better.
It's just a better grain for bread. So, who would utilize barley to make bread?
People who were under a siege and didn't have access to wheat in their fields.
Yes. The poor, the destitute, the needy, the sick, prisoners. This is the slop. This is the slop that you're creating right here, that you're eating every single day. And it's not just regular slop. It was originally going to be cooked over human poop. Now this is interesting because this is one of the rare moments where Ezekiel speaks up on his own behalf.
I would have already spoken up. That's the good thing about Ezekiel.
What's he speak up? What's this?
Can't do that.
Yeah. Here's priest mode, right? I can't be man of God, please don't, I've never defiled myself, right? So he speaks up, and what's God's response?
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Here's some cow dung.
Now, what's interesting about that is that is actually still used today in multiple cultures as a burning fuel. And so this may not have, I'm not speaking for sure, but may not have been even that uncommon in certain cultures surrounding Israel to cook with cow feces. But all of this, why would it be junk? Why would it be the slop food with small portions of ration and cooked over human feces? What is this speaking to?
Siege.
Right. Like, there's going to come a time in which these people are going to experience an unimaginable amount of suffering before the fall. And that suffering is going to include eating, well, we're going to find out, even worse than what we can imagine. Human poop is not that big of a deal based off of what we find out in chapter 5. But here's the Watchman experiencing at a micro level the disparity that is to come for Israel. Any other thoughts before we move on?
Didn't, when I have King James Version, but when Austin was reading, didn't it say they would eat with, be anxious?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, of course, they're hating what's going on, but it's almost like they're scared too.
Yeah. What's right outside the walls? I mean,
So it's not only physical, but it's mental
absolutely.
suffering.
Absolutely. Unimaginable. Yep. If you're at your local grocery stores, I would highly encourage you to go buy some Ezekiel bread. You can. It's called Ezekiel bread. It is not to the Bible's standards, I hope.
So I want to read, this is from Leviticus 26. When I cut off your supply of bread, 10 women will be able to break your bread in one oven, and they will dole out the bread by weight. You will eat, but you will not be satisfied. So that was the predicted punishment for disobedience. However many years.
We'll figure there. We're coming back.
Right.
Coming back. All right, let's move on to chapter 5. All right, this is the longest of the sign acts, chapter 5. We are not going to read the entirety of this chapter. However, just read the first, let's go 4 verses, and then I'll summarize. Yeah.
And you, O son of man, take a sharp sword, and use it as a barber's razor, and pass it over your head and your beard. Then take balances for weighing, and divide the hair. A third part you shall burn in the fire in the midst of the city, when the days of the siege are completed. And a third part you shall take and strike with the sword all around the city. And a third part you shall scatter to the wind. And I will unsheath the sword after them. And you shall take from these a small number and bind them in the skirts of your robe. And of these again you shall take some and cast them into the midst of the fire and burn them in the fire. From there a fire will come out into all the house of Israel.
All right, what do you think?
That's the people of Israel scattered and burned and killed.
Okay, so here's priestly prophet Ezekiel, and he's being asked to perform what?
Shame yourself.
Shave himself. Why would this not be a good thing?
They weren't supposed to cut their hair.
They were not supposed to cut their hair. Leviticus 21:5 and Ezekiel 44:20 will talk about it as well. This was something the priests were not to do. And so the suffering servant is not only suffering physically, but mentally, spiritually, I mean from all sides, literally, he is suffering. He is to shave off all that hair. He is to take a third of it and do what with it? Burn it in the middle of the city. Right? A third of that hair burnt, gone, dead. A third of it, what? A third of them cut on the outside of the city, around the city. Right? And then a third of them will be scattered, will dissipate. If you keep reading, it talks about they'll be leaving with the sword to their back, ultimately. Then out of the third, a third, and a third, he's supposed to take out a small number of these, a little bit of hair, and do what with it? Two things. Bind it into his skirt, and priestly garments, and yet still some of that small amount he is to do what? Garden. So let's think this through. What does the hair represent? People. So what is this trying? What happens to these people? They're burned. They're killed. They're scattered. But there's a
remnant.
little tiny bit of a hope.
Remnant.
And it's a remnant. And even yet, in that remnant, the little tiny bit that's pulled out of all these third and third and third, yet some of them will still be burned. Now, what does burning represent in a lot of the biblical motifs or patterns?
Purification.
Okay, purification, yes. Also attributed to what of God? I heard it. Judgment. Judgment. Judgment of God. Think Daniel. There's a river of fire flowing from the Ancient of Days, right? This fire is spread out and going into all the nations. It's a purification. It's a judgment. So here, in the midst of this fourth sign act, we're seeing that there's not a lot of hope for the people, but God does give a small amount of hope that He will continue His covenant loyalty in providing a remnant to carry on. Now, we live on this side.
That was tied up in a skirt?
Yes, that's what's tied up in a skirt. Now, we live on this side of it all happening, so we can clearly see, yes, He provided a remnant. That remnant would eventually grow, would go back to Israel eventually. It will grow to the point where we'll see the nation, we'll see Jesus born in and out of that remnant, and ultimately He will continue His will in a way. But this is a good thing, obviously, because He's not really experiencing a lot of good. He's experiencing a lot of despair. This is a little bit of a good thing. There's going to be a small amount that will remain. Now, what I want to get to is, number one, what are they guilty of? I'm going to read it. Verse 6. Talking about Jerusalem. Jerusalem is being personified as a woman. And she has rebelled against my rules by doing wickedness more than the nations and against my statutes more than the countries all around her. For they have rejected my rules and have not walked in my statutes. Therefore, thus says the Lord, because you are more turbulent than the nations that were all around you, and have not walked in my statutes, or obeyed my rules, and have not even acted according to the rules of the nation that are all around you. Therefore, thus says the Lord your God, behold, I, even I, am against you, and I will execute judgments in your midst in the sight of the nations. Now, there's something that's kind of missed in English, but in Hebrew, what you would have heard over and over and over again is the word Mispat. Anybody know anything about the word Mispat? Huh? There may be, I don't know. That could be a play on words, I'm not sure. Mispat has kind of three nuances of words that's being used for the Israelites. It was common practice for certain biblical authors or prophets to sort of shorthand the laws and the decrees, which we would call the Torah. The laws and decrees became shorthand for all of the Torah. And so they had three nuances for this word mishpat. And the idea of mishpat is, number one, the mishpat were judicial acts that would help create community of righteousness. So they would follow these rules in the midst of their community, and these rules would be a way for them to act justly and to create a strong, united community. The second usage was sort of the standard code and behavior that wasn't unique to necessarily Israel. So this would be the mishpat of the general population, the neighbors surrounding Israel themselves. So even in the midst of the rules of, let's just call them like the laws of ethics or something, generalized laws of ethics, the thing that we're sort of born with, that we all kind of understand we shouldn't do, and insert whatever that is culturally today, we shouldn't human traffic children. For the most part, everybody's on board with that. It doesn't really matter what culture you're in. Hopefully, and that's a bad rabbit hole. I should not go down that way. So this is the standard code and behavior of people. And the last ones is actually used in response to the first two. And this is the acts of retribution or judgment that God would have towards the people for not following their Mispat. So here, in one verse, basically what he says is, you have not performed my judicial acts to help build community. You haven't even done like the standards and codes of the nations, of the neighbors, and all around you. Therefore, I'm against you, and I'm going to bring about my judgment. And this is all the same word, mishpat, mishpat, mishpat. And every time this is used, it's going to call to mind that shorthand, the laws and decrees of the Torah. These people have not listened, have not fulfilled their duty. In fact, there's an entire storyline of possibility that these people could have met. And it goes all the way back to Genesis chapter 12. What was unique in Genesis chapter 12? What's that? First half without.
Abram being called.
Abram, right. He's going to be called out. He's going to be made into a new nation. His name's going to be made great. And those who bless him, they will be blessed. Those who curse him, they will be cursed. It's this idea that God is calling a people out from the nations. And he's going to set these people apart, but with an intentional purpose. And it is to bless those nations, that all nations will be blessed. So then fast forward in the timeline, we're skipping a whole bunch. By the time you get to Exodus, you see God has now called his people back out of Egypt, and he's formulated these people, and they are given a mission. And they fail that mission immediately. And that mission is found in Exodus chapter 19. I've referred to this several times if you've ever taken any of my classes. But Exodus 19 is this weird story where Moses goes up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain, up the mountain, down the mountain. He's told to tell the people, hey, there's a thunderstorm up here. It's raging. For 7 days, you would remain clean. Don't touch another woman. Don't do anything like that. And do not step foot on the mountain until you hear the trumpets blowing. And then when you hear the trumpets blowing, depending on how you understand this, but my understanding of this is that you are to go up on the mountain. But instead, what do? They hear the trumpets blowing, they don't move. They hear the trumpets blowing, they're too afraid, and then they ask Moses to go up and intercede on their behalf. So Moses now becomes this intercessor on behalf of the people who have been called with a very specific job in mind in Exodus 19, and they are to be a kingdom of what to the nations?
Priests.
In Exodus 19, they are called with a purpose to become the intercessors on behalf of all those around Israel. But they failed. Instead of becoming a kingdom of priests, they become a kingdom with priests. And so this whole storyline that keeps unfolding, these people who are stiff-necked and stubborn, they've defiled themselves. They're constantly whoring themselves after other gods and other ways. They have done anything but the intent of God for these people. And because of that, because they have not done that, now the ways of God or the ways of their neighbors that they've been whoring themselves after will now become the judgment that will be used against them. Which is where we get this final section, which takes us back to Leviticus here. What is the judgment for breaking the laws and statutes, the Torah? We find it in two places. Leviticus 26 is one, and Deuteronomy 28. I don't have time, but I encourage you to go look those up. And I'm just going to go down the list of all the things he lays out here in Ezekiel chapter 5, the second half. And what I did was color code them. It's kind of interesting to do that because you can see really what it is. But in chapter 5, verse 10, it says that one of the things that's going to happen as a part of the judgment, the mishpat of God, is they're going to be cannibals. Oh, suddenly human poop doesn't seem as big of a deal when fathers are eating sons. This is a result of Leviticus chapter 26, verse 29. You saw that? Can you read that for me? 29?
Which verse?
26, 29.
You will eat the flesh of your sons and the flesh of your daughters.
There you go. And then you see that in chapter 5, verse 10. Chapter 5, verse 10, you see that they will be scattered, which we've actually already seen once before. This is from Leviticus 26, verse 33. Can you read that?
I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out my sword and pursue you. Your land will be laid waste and your cities will lie in ruins.
Chapter 5, verse 12 of Ezekiel says they will suffer from plague or famine, which is from 26:16. Can you
You want me to read that too? Okay.
We're in a pattern now. So.
I'm sorry, I was reading.
You're
it
good.
out.
You're good. You're good.
Then I will do this to you. I will bring upon you sudden terror, wasting diseases, and fever that will destroy your sight and drain away your life. You will plant seed in vain because your enemies will eat it.
Chapter 5, verse 12 says that he will open the sword. This is from Leviticus 26:33. Chad, go.
I will scatter you among the nations and will draw out my sword and pursue you. Your land will be laid waste and your cities will lie in ruins.
Chapter 5, verse 14 says they will be public shame among the nations. This is from Leviticus 26:31.
I will turn your cities into ruins and lay waste your sanctuaries, and I will take no delight in the pleasing aroma of your offerings.
And chapter 5, verse 17 says he will send wild beasts against you. And this is from Leviticus 26:22.
I will send wild animals against you, and they will rob you of your children, destroy your cattle, and make you so few in number that your roads will be deserted.
Does your Bible say a title above this section?
Punishment for disobedience.
Punishment for disobedience. So the people have been given a law. This law is to protect them, to help them reach a certain potential that they could reach. They have not fulfilled this law. Now the idea is that in this covenant relationship, they have not kept their part, and so the punishment now that they will that will be returned upon them is everything that's laid out in Ezekiel 5. And if you read Ezekiel 5 by itself, you're like, wow, that's a terrible thing. But if you read Ezekiel 5 from the point of view of an Israelite, you know exactly why these things specifically. These are the broken half of their covenant. And God is now punishing them or bringing this upon them. And in reality, the point was that the nations were actually meant to see Israel as these priestly witnesses for God, on behalf of God. But now they're actually providing the standard by which Israel is going to be judged. The things that the nations are accused of doing are now being drawn by God himself upon these Israelites, by the nations. And so we're going to see this witness of God's judgment on Israel. But there is a piece of hope here. What is the piece of hope? Let's follow the logical line here. He saved a remnant.
You had a little remnant left.
There's a remnant left, so there's a piece of hope there. Logically, let's think through this. The Israelites are in a covenant relationship with who? With God, with Yahweh. They have broken their half of the covenant. Right? Now there is a punishment that will take place according to their broken side of the covenant. But there's still this little remnant down here. So what does that mean about this remnant? What does that mean about the covenant that God has with these people?
His covenant, his part of the covenant is still going.
It definitely means there's still something there. Because if there wasn't something there, he could just wipe the people completely off the planet. But he saved a remnant.
And I'm sure it will come to his hope only in Christ.
Preach. Absolutely. Following all this destruction and covenant violation and punishment, it's going to be followed with this idea of restoration. And that's the hope in these stories, and that's the hope in Ezekiel. Like, we're going to go through some really dark paths. But God has sprinkled in here these little ideas of, yeah, but this is a judgment. This is a purification. This is a flood of judgment, wiping away clean, handing the people over to the things that they've desired in the first place. But it doesn't mean God's plan is over. In fact, it doesn't even mean that it wasn't all part of God's plan. This is all an unfolding story that we have the benefit of living in 2026 and getting to see how it unfolded.
What year are you living in?
I'm sorry, I just got out of financial fiscal year conversation. 2025.
In verse 9 says he's never done before and he'll never do it again.
What do you think he did?
Well, if he said the same thing when he flooded the water, he would do it again.
And I'll do among you where I've not done, and the like of which I will never do again. Like, is this punishment?
I mean,
Scatter them?
I imagine he still punishes. I am convinced,
Well,
I could be wrong, but I'm convinced that we saw another scattering of the Jews during some of your lifetimes, not mine, but, yeah.
I wonder if it's specific to Israel.
I think it's specific to current Israel too.
Well, no, I mean, what he's doing here would be specific to Jerusalem.
I don't know, that's why I asked.
Which,
what she
I mean, and by the time you read Revelation, depending on your views of end times, I mean, much of the stuff is going to occur again.
Definitely specific to Jews.
Mhm.
Well, it's specific to the nation of Israel, but you and I are now members of the true nation of Israel. I've been grafted in. I really like the positive parts of the covenant. I do not want to eat the flesh of other people. You know?
Ezekiel is considered among the remnant. In fact, he's more than that. He's a righteous one among the remnant. He's one that is set apart among the remnant. And he should go through a lot of suffering. Yeah. I mean, mind you, he's already gone through suffering. He's been ripped out of his home, and he lives in a foreign nation now.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not true. The whole book of Amos is the same stuff for the other half of the Israel nation, for the other part of the Israel nation. And the actual fall of the city of Jerusalem, where there's not even a doubt amongst the Israelites that there's going to be destroyed, that the city is completely taken over. And Amos says all this, he does not act out these things, but he says, he prophesies all these things that are going to happen, and then they wouldn't do happen. And he uses very brutal language to speak about the remnant. He says the remnant, he describes it as a man who finds what's left of his cattle or something, and all he finds are a couple of bones, and the rest is gone. And that's pretty harsh.
We kind of hit on this last week too. Think here's the idea of all this death and destruction and devastation. And then by the time you get to the later chapters of Ezekiel, one of the most famous ones is the Valley of Dry Bones, which is all about God breathing into life, new life, these dead and dusty dry bones. Right? And so there's definitely a major turn that will take place in Ezekiel that will point towards God's sovereign plan for hope and restoration and whatever that's supposed to look like. But ultimately, at this moment, we are left in the suffering servant, Ezekiel, acting out in silence in his home the devastation that's about to
Do you
occur.
think this is inside? Do you think people are coming inside his home, or do you think he's stepping out or being placed out into the street or somewhere?
I think there's room for both, but I think it only says he's shut up in his home. It does. Later on, we do, like I said, we see there's moments where certain leadership and stuff will come in, and there seems to be moments in which he is placed out in front. I don't know if it's like out in front of his home or if he's like in among the exiles. So it gets tricky, but he is shut up in his home for quite a while. I can't even remember. I'll have to look back when it says he finally was released of that. But Israel, because they were supposed. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna use Elena as an example. Elena, she's dealing with a bully at school or some popular girls at school. And Elena wants to go and hang out with these popular girls, but the popular girls are just doing some awful stuff, right? And I am trying to teach Elena to not do this. This is not the way you should act. You are to live differently. You are a Christ follower. You're not to act like that. But she chooses to act like that anyways. I'm not going to punish those popular girls. I'm going to punish her. And the popular girls will be witness of the change that must take place, and hope, who knows, depending on the scenario, maybe physical witness of dad love. Yes, no, yeah, it's totally made up. I'm sorry. You guys thought this was a real scenario. No.
Elena's sitting there, I see it in her eyes, she's
No,
trying to.
Elena, I love you.
That's fine.
Stay away from popular girls.
She's going, that's not true.
But he makes that explicit. He calls the other nations. And first, God, through Amos, lists the sins of the nations around him. They're not good. Then he lists Judah and Israel. It's a long, long list. And he calls the other nations as witnesses, because Israel's evil is greater than the nations surrounding it, because of all the nations, Israel only was the one he had chosen.
Think about Jesus. Jesus would be, the nations, the Gentiles would witness the death at the hands of the blinded ones who are his own people. And the nations themselves will be the one that will come to him over the stiff-necked, hardened Jewish people who wouldn't accept it.
I just want to say on chapter 5, my title says God's razor objection. Razor objection.
Precise. Yeah, that's good. I like that. That's great. Tracy, would you mind closing us out in prayer?
Father God, thanks for this time, Lord. Hopefully this is enlightening us and then getting us closer to you, God. We want to thank everybody that's here, Lord. Take care of them. Get us all home safe, Lord. That everything we do, Lord, we hope we're doing it for you. In your name we pray, amen.